Until about 7, my relationship with my father was great. I grew up in Memphis, and he used to drive these trucks, and he used to take us riding in the 18-wheeler, and it was fun. At the same time, when he was out there on the drugs, we didn't see him as much. He didn't come around as much.
I was born overseas, military brat, and I never knew him in my childhood at all. It was just me and my mom.
Our relationship isn't great at all.
I know the mistakes and I know the pitfalls, but at some point we realize we all need our own experiences. But having a father in my life that paid attention to me might have been a little better. I might have gotten steered in a different direction.
That is the person that a child looks up to as their role model.
What?
A father to me is someone that's encouraged you to do right, you know, being there for you through the good, through the bad, showing you how to cook, you know, just showing you the ropes.
The perfect, ideal father is present, most importantly, present. Like, even if you're in a bad mood, good mood, whatever, he's present.
A father is like your first friend, like your first love. You know what I mean? He's the one that showed me how to be, like how to be in a relationship or how to expect, what behaviors to expect. He's the one that instilled my confidence.
For me, a father is basically the head of the household who is there regardless, like man that keeps his word and that is raising their children intentionally, you know, being there and being effective in their lives, not just being around, but being effective.
I'd have to say a father is a protector. If nothing else, he protects the meaning and the institution of family.
A father for me is someone who dedicates their time to being with you, getting to know you, wants the best for you, does everything in their power to make sure that you have everything that you need and that you're provided for.
A definition of a father to me is the man. He doesn't have to be even biologically related to the child, but it's a man who sets an example, lives by example, teaches, consistent, and don't give up.
They are just the foundation. The foundation. When you think about building a home, you have to have a solid foundation. That's what a father is to a child.
What is your relationship with your father?
Non-existent. Because my stepfather raised me since I was a child, and he passed away when I was 11. So my biological father is alive, but we don't have a relationship. So it's my stepfather. I just say, like, if somebody asks me, hey, where's your dad? He's deceased, because that's who I attribute as my father, my stepfather. Because he stepped up to the plate, you know, he gave me the confidence and just showed me love.
Before I was even born, my dad got hooked on many drugs I don't even know the names of. And it just made him not human. He wasn't a human being anymore at that point. He just wasn't himself at all. I didn't even know who he was until this past year, who he really is. And so being a child and being in the presence in the household of a drug addict and being in a dangerous situation around dangerous people, it was challenging.
My stepdad, I love him to death. I'm my adoptive father, my dad. I love him to death. But there were things that were missing. Like I felt like he spent more time with the boys and their stuff. Because like I said, they were sports oriented. The whole family was sports oriented but me. So they didn't understand me a lot.
My biological father, the one who birthed me, was from Puerto Rico. So my biological grandparents didn't speak English. We were raised speaking Spanish. And I love my grandparents, but at the same time, I pushed him out of my life after my mom and him were divorced. But when I hit a certain age, I said, I tried to make amends. So I was like, if you, just admit you're wrong, just apologize, just say what you did, admit it. You ain't got to say what you did, just admit it. Apologize and we can move forward and I'll let it go. Many years he chose not to. He tried to contact me multiple times. And until I heard that apology, there was no forgiveness.
My relationship with my father is kind of, it's touch and go, it's here and there. Like as I'm getting to know him as an adult. And so there's so many pieces and parts of my life where he wasn't there. And so I'm trying to, I guess, define what our relationship should be and how deep I want to invest in that because of that desire to not be hurt. So there's this like, I want all of who he is and all that he can be for me and all that I wanted him to be. But then there's a part of me like, we're grown, so that's gone. Maybe he can be that for my daughters, be that grandpa, right?
Well, I don't really have a relationship with my father. I know who he is. I know of him. I grew up with my father's side of the family. My mom and my dad divorced when I was young. So my sister and I basically became like the other children, and he had another family. And that's pretty much how it's been. He would show up for certain events, graduations, celebrations, things of that nature. He came when I was in the hospital one time, but I did remember longing for him for a long time. But as I got older, I kind of just had to accept it for what it was.
I remember, and I hold on to my dad walking me down the field when I was homecoming queen. So I remember that, and I always think about that and that feeling, just having him by my side, representing me, just being there. That was one of the greatest memories.
My dad has always been around. It's not like I don't know him, I don't know the family. It's just that now, after, of course, my mom's passing, he has been trying a little more. You know what I'm saying? And I've been receptive to that. I've forgiven him because I've assumed that he just didn't know how to be a father to me. Now, you might be a father to your other children, but you didn't know how to love me. I could go like years or months without even talking to him, and we're in the same city.
So he's just never, I've offered him the opportunities, but he's never reached out or anything. And I have younger siblings, half siblings through him that he takes care of. So I'm just glad that he's a dad to them. But as far as with me, I think, like I said, the dad that raised me, he's deceased.
I was in a lot of trouble all the time, just because I just did off the wall crazy stuff. But I felt like I wasn't getting the attention that I needed. And then when I met my father, it was, let me throw all this stuff at her because I haven't been there. And it was, I'm sad because I wasn't there, but all of it was your choice, you know. My mom never told him he couldn't be in my life. He made the choice. And I know a lot of it was due to embarrassment. It was, you know, just different things, but I felt lost. I was what do you call it, a puzzle piece that didn't know where I fit. And that made me kind of, as I grew older, look for love in the wrong places because I didn't really know what it was.
And I said, at this point in my life, there's no room for it. I was like, hey, I've given you the opportunity. I've opened the doors many a times, but as a child, you can only make so many steps forward before the parent says, you know, why should I? I don't really have to do all that. But at that point, I was like, even on your deathbed, don't ask for me.
Even in middle school and in high school, when I wanted him to come to my basketball games, and we would send schedules in the mail to him, and so I would kind of make up like white lies and tell my friends that he was in the stadium, and he wasn't. But I don't know. It was just part of me just wanting him to be there, so I would make things up sometimes just to make it seem like he was more in my life than what he was, because some of my friends, their dads would bring them food and come up to the school and do different stuff with them. So it was hard sometimes, just looking at that and you didn't have that and knowing that he's right there.
I'm a mother of 3 kids, and I think that has been the basis of my life probably for the last 15 years. I've, pride myself on raising my children, and I enjoy when, people give compliments on their behavior and, all of those things. So I think I've been a mother more than anything.
It's good. My 8-year-old, she helps me a lot. And just, I think God gave me my twins at a perfect time.
Being a mother is wonderful. I love being a mom. It is so many facets to it, though. It's some days it's great. Some days it's like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing.
Being a mom is really cool, because you think you have this person that looks like you, and you are able to make them all the best versions of yourself and put them into the world. And you have to be comfortable with flying by the seat of your pants. Like, I've never been a boy. I don't know what that's like. So I tell them, like, kid, I'm learning as you learn.
It is hard, but it's rewarding in the same as you raise people and then you look at who they become and to see that they need you still.
Well, it's definitely a struggle. Being a single mother at that, just trying to balance out your everyday living, trying to make sure they doing their chores, not having a male figure there to kind of, do more discipline than what I've been doing. Because boys, they tend to listen more to men than women, so it's been hard.
Your children succeed or fail mainly upon what you do. And you try not to take that hardship of whether they succeed or fail. Like every parent, I wanted my kids to not go through what I did. And I think that's my part on my downfall for them. The society changes, the cost of living changes, college tuition rises. And as a single mom, I did nothing but want to pay for their college and not have them go into 6 figures dead.
The hardest part was probably not having someone to lean on and to, just get that advice from, or hey, am I doing this right? Do you have any suggestions? Or, just doing it alone. I don't think we were created to do it alone.
Motherhood for me is humility, honestly, because I was an old mum, right? I started at age 40 having children. And people say, wow, that was a long time. I was career-focused and self-absorbed and driven. And so motherhood wasn't something I was dreaming about as a kid. It wasn't something that was on my radar at all. And I feel that the responsibility of being a mum is a gift from the universe. I think God tells you, here's your purpose. It's greater than you. And here it is. And you may be ready, you may not be.
But it's a constant force of nature trying to get kids to do what you know they need to do, and yet they fight you in every aspect of, no, I want to do this. I want to be grown. Well, you want to be grown, do it on your own dime.
It's been a little rough, like with the discipline, because he's spoiled, but my baby he's not really talking as well, and he'll get frustrated. He know we talking, I was like, no, he don't, he's just laughing at you. You don't know what you're doing, so it's been a little struggle. And then some of the decisions that he chooses to make, we have our disagreements with his lifestyle. I don't agree with it. And I tell him, keep that separate from your child, don't bring it around. Other than that, it really don't be a big issue.
In thinking about co-parenting, I work with a lot of couples who are trying to navigate a co-parenting relationship and figure out how to do things. And that's a huge challenge because you're talking about two people who are not together for a reason. They don't like each other anymore. When they're going through, especially initial separate, they really may hate each other at that point. And you're telling them, I want you to put that on the back burner and come together for this child.
Once you have a kid, it's about that kid. And so whatever you're feeling, feel it on your own and deal with this kid. Now, I have done things to make life easier for me, to protect myself, but I've always put him first. So my son grew up not living with his father, but his father being very present in his life. And I think one thing that made that easy is that once we separated, we didn't do that back and forth thing. We never did that. And matter of fact, when I first met my fiance, I was like, this is what you have to know. We're friends. We have a kid. We're always going to be friends. And so the best thing for you to do is be okay with that. And then once he met him, he was like, oh. And so now they're good. And so literally we co-parent that way.
It's different because it's three different, guys. And so being able to compromise, so to say, with all three of them instead of it being one man and, all of the kids, being able to know, where we are and setting boundaries and setting up visitations and things like that for them. It can be a lot.
For sons, that is the first person that's going to help them learn how to be a man. Moms can really try, and caring uncles and family friends and grandfathers can help with that. But there's nothing like son looking to dad for modeling, not only in how to be a man, but how to treat women, which is really important. It's important for daughters that dads be in lives. The research is that girls that grow up without their dads in their lives, they have a much more increased risk of risky sexual behavior because they're constantly looking for that affirmation.
Elijah stays with me full time. His dad is in another state. Of course, he comes to visit. Elijah might go and visit. But our influences, the type of our values, I kind of feel like he's still the same person. And I don't recognize the person I was. And he likes to try and sometimes drag me back to that person. I'm like, that person doesn't exist anymore. You know, like I'm trying to create a new normal for Elijah so that he doesn't have to know what that brokenness feels like or have to go feel like, oh, you need to talk to 20 girls just to feel like something or feel like a man. Like you need to love yourself.
Anyone isolated to themselves with their pain becomes toxic. And at the end of the day, when we see what's happening in the kids, they're feeding off of the toxic stuff that we refuse to deal with as adults.
Here's what's interesting, is because we were in love and we had this beautiful love story. But the story turned. We didn't see eye to eye because he had preconceived notions about what marriage should be. I had no notion at all what it should be. And so we had issue with getting together on how we should write our story. And so what you do with it from the point of it's being over from the relationship between you as marriage or wife or husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, is up to you. But you don't have a choice. And so we look at this as we're stuck together. And the thing about parenting is it doesn't end at 18. It continues until death do you part. It really does. Because you have children, they get bigger, they have grandchildren, there's a wedding, there's a christening, whatever is going on your path, there's a graduation. You know, so you're going to always be together. And so why not figure out how to get on as parents?
It doesn't have to be strife. It doesn't have to be that. You only have that when you haven't forgiven or when you haven't moved on.
You know, it's hard being a parent, whether you're two parents in one household or you're a single parent. If you're a single parent, it's a little harder because you're doing it all by yourself. But even having two parents in the house, it's hard to commingle the ideology that you both have as far as raising kids and being a family and which directions you're going to take in so many different facets. So it's just hard, but it's rewarding in the end because you created that. How can you not love them? How can you not be there, you know?
I'm human, and then sometimes you want to take those words back and you can't take them back, and then I catch myself. Like what I tell my kids is, once you put those words out there, you can't reel it back in. It's like toothpaste. Once it's out, it's out. And I have my mom like this. Like, can I get a break here? Help me out, please.
I think a father role is more intentional than a mother's role. And the reason I say that is because I feel it comes to us naturally. And I know because when we're pregnant, we don't have a choice of feeling the baby kick, or we don't have a choice like I'm trying to sleep. Like we just don't, it's natural, it's just, but for a father, you have to choose when your wife is pregnant to touch her stomach. You have to choose to build that bond. You know, you have to choose to talk to the baby, or there's different things. A father's role has to be more intentional, and if they're not, they miss a lot of moments. Whereas a mother, we're immersed in that.
So when I was in law enforcement, one of the main things I heard from dads that were locked up for a number of reasons was the way that they viewed their kids. We would do like our cell inspections every night, and you wouldn't go to a room without seeing, you know, pictures of dad's kids. There might not be a picture of a mom or whatever, but there were always pictures of kids in there. So I think that dads want to be involved in their children's lives. I believe there was a study done about this that said the vast majority of dads want to be very much involved in their children's lives. But a lot of these same dads just have obstacles to overcome that might make the process a little bit more difficult. Gatekeeping has always been an issue. And I don't think that's just an issue that happens with moms. I think dads can be gatekeepers too. Anytime a custodial parent becomes an obstacle to overcome for the non-custodial parent to have visitation or equal access or whatever, so that can become an issue.
Our legal system and our child support system is set up to be adversarial. It's not set up to be collaborative. If you think about it, for instance, a couple going through a divorce, they each have to get attorneys and they're each going to court. It's who wins and who loses. And then you're told, okay, next week, I want you guys to come together in a healthy, collaborative way as co-parents. That doesn't happen. And so, who gets left in the middle of that? It's the child. Imagine you're a child, you're 7 or 8 years old, you've just been at dad's house, and I've had this happen. Mom picks you up, and you've had this great time at dad's house, but you can't let mom know because mom will be upset. And the child either concocts something to tell mom because, you know, we got to start bashing dad. And so even if I don't bash him, I can't let her know that I actually had a good time.
I just want to raise my child. I don't want the legal, the back and forth. I do what I can. If I don't have it, I'll go get it. You know what I'm saying? But it's just like Elijah deserves better. And as Elijah grows up, I want him to be able to say, who's your hero? My mommy and my daddy.
I know in our work we've dealt with some dads that pride becomes an issue. If you're a non-custodial parent and you want your kids to see you in the best light possible, considering what's being said about you that you're not present to defend yourself for, it can be a bit of a hindrance for those dads to try to show up if what's being said about them might be true, because there's that shame, you know. And so we've had to deal with that with a number of the dads that have come through our group. It's because they want to do it, they want to be there, but sometimes the biggest hindrance is them in the way that they perceive themselves. But deep down inside, they have that desire.
Because I have a client that I work with, and you know, he's supposed to get a certain amount of time, and magically, that child is busy when he calls. Hello. Okay. Facilitating is going, hey, so exciting, your dad's gonna be on the phone. It's gonna be fun to talk to him. Because what you know is that at the end of the day, the best thing for this child that you guys created is to have access to both parents. You know, that's what we need, moms and dads. We need both of them. And so just think of long-term impacts with whatever you do. I'm not saying putting your child's father on child support is bad. Yes, two responsible parents, two responsible adults both need to contribute, but don't let it get to the point to where it negatively impacts or has a long-term lasting impact on the child, because those are the things that stick with them like forever. It shapes their future relationships, the way they view men, the way they view women. Like, it's just a spiral.
And so my message to men and women is really both the same thing. Own your stuff. Own your stuff, because you have some. Dad has some stuff. Mom has some stuff. If y'all's relationship didn't work, own your stuff. What part did I play in this? What role do I play in this? And then at the same time, what role, because I recognize that the mother of my children is very valuable in their development as human beings. So how do I make sure that they know that she's still valuable, because she is?
Show up. Show up regardless of whether or not your former partner wants you there or not, whether they got a new boo, they got a new baby daddy, they got a new house on the hill, there's a new school. Show up. It's gonna feel uncomfortable. You're gonna feel like everyone's looking at you, and they probably are, but show up and be there, because at the end of the day, the only person that will be let down if you don't show up is your kids. They're not going to be children forever. And, you know, these are the people that are going to be like adults, and they're going to be our society. And we don't invest in them. And we don't get how important parenting is. And it affects generations.
Relationship with your child's father?
Non-existent. He was there until about 2, My son's 22. Yeah, I don't know. We've always been here. So I don't know what, well, I can tell you why. It's a product of a broken home and a fatherless father. That's the answer.
So I think a lot of people are connected to, well, because he wasn't there, I get to behave this way. But that doesn't, we can't make excuses for our behavior because someone wasn't around. Like that person was doing the best that they can do. So now it falls on you to do the best that you can do. And that's figure out, well, who can I get access to help me grow into who I want to be as a father. And so if you're choosing to be stuck in this place because someone wasn't present for you, I mean, then you're hurting everybody that's connected to you. And most importantly, you're hurting yourself. And then we get to see how that plays out in society. When we look at all the different things that research says about fathers and their importance or the lack of fathers in the household, at the end of the day, fathers got to do what they need to do to step up. And then the society needs to do what it needs to do to help fathers become the fathers that they need to become.
I'm probably the typical little girl. You know, you envision your dad walking you down the aisle, the daddy's little girl, like, oh, all the little boys, you stay away from my daughter. I never had that. And so I'm just like, what is it that I did wrong? What is it that we did wrong? He did have issues with infidelity, but it's like, is that lifestyle, chasing women, more important than your presence with your daughters?
Unhealthy people will produce unhealthy relationships and more unhealthy people. If that fault is not corrected, that fault will manifest in everything that I touch. And it's not until something happens or someone talks to you or whatever takes place that corrects the faulty perspective, then your interaction will be validating your faulty perspective. So you'll interact with people because you think they already hate you. So you're gonna lunge out first because I'd rather get you first than you get me first. In a relational perspective, if all you've ever encountered was people that are going to hurt you in a relationship, if that's all you've ever seen is abuse, then you'll walk into every relationship expecting to see abuse. So for a man that's seen a bunch of abuse in his life and he gets into a relationship and he starts to see that abuse take place and his response is avoidance, what does he do? I'm out, I leave. Well, who's typically left with the children? And that in itself is a different conversation because it's not that the children are always just left with moms, it's sometimes the systems make sure that the children stay with moms. So there is a systemic issue to this whole thing.
If we're thinking about the problem, there's multiple systems. We're looking at education, law enforcement, health, municipal, civil, criminal. You have to look at all the systems.
The court system doesn't favor dads. Moms are automatically assumed to be the best parent. Dads have to prove themselves to be the best parent. Yeah, that's not good. Because I think we miss a lot of opportunities there. There's a lot of dads that really would love to be a part of their kids' lives, and statistically, and just because of the way it's set up, moms get to call the shots on that a lot.
Some situations, the biggest hindrance is going to be your past. Let's say you're a dad and you have a history of substance abuse, and in the process of you dealing with your substance abuse, there was a situation where domestic violence occurred, and so now the mom or the rest of the family members feel unsafe to have you around the child because of something that you've done in your past. That becomes a blockage. That becomes a hindrance. Do the kids still want to see dad? Some of them do, especially if they weren't the ones that were being abused, but do the kids still want to have a relationship with dad? Sure they do. Does dad still want to have a relationship with the children? Absolutely. But, you know, it's difficult when there's a restraining order, or it's difficult when you have to be so many feet away from people that they've hurt in the past. And so that becomes a hindrance, or just damaged relationships. You know, dad and mom have a bad relationship, so mom wants nothing to do with the dad. And so because mom wants nothing to do with the dad, or dad wants nothing to do with the mom, the kids get played like ping pong balls back and forth, or the kids get weaponized against the other parent. It's quite demoralizing for, I think, a parent on any side when their children have been used as a weapon against them, because you don't want to fight the children. You want to fight the person that's weaponizing the kids, but it's hard to get to that person because they're pushing the kids first.
I don't feel like I've had like a true setting of a strong family unit. You know, I understand that my mom did want that for me, you know, maybe through having a stepfather, having that father figure, but it just wasn't there. You know, even as an adult and getting married, I tried to get to the point where I was like, okay, this is my dad. This is like, it was just hard. It just never really, I was never fully able to give of myself fully to that relationship, because I always sensed like he just was tolerating me, right? Because I just kind of came with the package. And I never fully felt like he accepted me as his daughter. And that was hard, because that's all I wanted, you know, was a father.
People need to start looking at how they're defining abuse, because abuse can manifest in a bunch of ways that aren't being labeled as abusive. There are some fathers that are present in terms that they're in the home, but they're workaholics. So that could be seen as abusive, because not only are you not providing something, but you're not providing it in excess. We excuse our behavior if we can say that at least I'm not doing that. So if I'm not putting my hands on somebody, then of course I'm not abusive, because I'm not doing that. But I can't express my frustration without using, you know, excessive amounts of profanity, or I can't express my anger without needing to berate somebody or put them down. And so there are things that we'll excuse in our own behavior because in our opinion, it's not as bad as what we've seen. And I think that's the interesting part, because we see it as progress. You know, a person's dad might have beat them, so because I'm not hitting you, you've got it better than I did.
Sometimes as adults, we start living our lives through our children. My son is smart. He's very, very smart. And I told him, I was like, man, you have the gumption, you have the go-get-it, you know, you can do this, you can do anything. And he was like, Mom, you don't know how much pressure you actually put on me by always telling me those things. So I had to open my eyes and my ears and listen to what my child was telling me, even though it wasn't what I wanted to hear. And he had to voice himself. So as parents, we need to be there to hear them when they're telling us these things and not make excuses for why they feel that way. Because a lot of times it's like, oh, you just feel that way because I said, or I did, or you want, you know, but sometimes we actually need to hear them. And fathers mostly need to hear them when they are speaking to you. And some kids can't, and some kids don't. But we need to try to listen to them, because a lot of times they're telling us that they're hurting and we're not listening to them until you get that phone call, so-and-so committed suicide.
You know, we have a lot of roles that we force men into, and I don't really think that's fair. I think that women have more bandwidth for who we can become. Men, it tends to be a more prescribed box that we want to keep them in. You know, back with the feminism and everything else like that, and women being strong, and it's not, I'm just not going to be this soft nurturing. I can also be a strong woman, and I can run my own business, and I can do this, and I can do that. And it's like, oh, we're going to celebrate you because you are multifaceted. You have your feminine side and you have your so-called masculine side. Men, it's like this. No, 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 you can't admit that you're sad. No, need you to be strong the whole time. Don't cry, little boys don't cry. No, don't, admit sadness. You can't foster that soft part of you. You can't every once in a while say, you know what? This is really hard. This is more than I can do right now. We don't allow men to do that. Because, ooh, you got out of this box. I get to exercise all of these roles. You get to exercise these. If you carry that further, then you think about little boys and wonder why they grow up being aggressive. Their only way of expressing themselves is by imposing their will on their environment and stuff. Because you have told them that I can't let you admit that you're like sad. You're like, that makes me feel, uncomfortable. That's a woman's emotion. It is sad to me because I feel like when I look at little boys sometimes, and I just feel like that sometimes it's harder on them because they can't be the full range of emotions. It's just so funny, men can't be emotional or anything like that, and then you have women complaining because their husbands aren't emotional, sentimental, or anything else like that, and it's like, but you just got through telling them it wasn't okay to be that. I feel like that we sometimes expect men to not be fully human.
That's where you see survivors turn and yell at their children, right? Because it's this domino effect, right? And do what I said, or you throw things, or you throw their toys away because they didn't pick them up, or all of those. So we just see this domino effect of power and control.
And the problem in this conversation is that you've got a number of groups of people on all spectrums of the conversation, but you've got one group of people that are being told this issue doesn't really affect you because you're stronger than that. And so then their reaction to life is, oh yeah, well, I don't need that, or I don't need you, or I don't need this. You're pushing back against something, but everything you push back against, your hands are still applied to. Everything you reject, you're still touching it.
How you are raised determines how a boy will turn into a man. And what I mean by that is a father is supposed to teach his son how to treat girls and women. A father is supposed to teach all the manly things that us as mothers can't do. A father that's not there is going to cause that child to have to heal from trauma.
There's some dads that I know that have purposely stayed away from parenting because they feel like they're so broken that they have nothing to offer, which is so sad. And when I look at them, I see the little boy that's sitting there. He never got help. And, they're not staying away from their kids because they don't love their kids. They're just afraid they'll harm them.
Policies and procedures were developed and created to reinforce and perpetuate punitive systems. So we'll punish you for needing mental health, for needing rehab, not being able to afford your fees, for not doing well and being perfect and having education and money and health insurance and all of those things. And so providers reinforce punitive systems, which then have a negative impact and position families in a place where it's harder to get out of and to get access that they need to resources.
I'm sure therapists would have a field day with me. I know this. How did I magically pick 3 dudes that were just like my dad? Did I cause my children this harm? Did I subconsciously mess my children's life up by trying to repair what was not repairable?
The question is, what is kind of the dynamic that I'm seeing from when you have women that have multiple partners? I think it's a constant search for feeling worthy and affirmed. If you were to ask a woman, why she keeps going from relationship, she doesn't probably even know. And she probably hasn't, for instance, put it together that her dad was not around or anything. Going from relationship to relationship is probably something they've also seen in their own childhoods. Especially when we are under a lot of stress in our lives, financial things, relationship things, we go back to what is familiar, even if it's not healthy. And so unless you pointed it out to her, a woman may not even realize that she's repeating the same thing her mom did, until someone brings that to her attention. And it takes that conscious effort of saying, it's the whole, I want to stop the cycle.
Once we look at data, looking at who's impacted the most. When we look at jail and prison systems, it's Black men that are impacted the most. When we look at child welfare systems, it's Black families that are impacted the most, then Hispanic and Latino families. When we look at school to prison pipeline, it's Black boys that are primarily fitting the criteria of school to prison pipeline. In ISS, school suspensions, then Black girls, and then Hispanic Latino families. When we look at health disparities, we look at even to the point of birth, Black mothers and Black infants are most at risk. And so we have to look at the reality of data and say, okay, now that we know who's impacted most, how did that happen? How and why are Black mothers and Black babies at risk? How and why are Black children not reading or Latino children not graduating, right? And so we have to ask ourselves the real questions, then advocate for policy change, law change. We have all of these other systems, and so there's many local, state, and national levels that we have to advocate at.
Dads really teach kids about impulse control, and they help the kids feel protected in the house. You know, that's why you've got boys in particular growing up without a dad, and they're like, well, I had to be the man of the house, and it's causing them to have to step into a role that they're not ready for. Not only not ready for, but emotionally and psychologically shouldn't feel like they have to do that.
I truly believe that even if the father is not around, and whether he's deceased or just not in the picture, to have some type of male role in your kid's life, because it makes a big difference. That male role is very important to balance out their lives. And if they don't have a father to tell them they love them, maybe that uncle or that granddaddy or whoever can be like, you're pretty, I love you. They can mean it from somebody who truly loves them as a child and can put that and instill in them from a male's point of view. Because what that damages a lot of women is when they hear it from, like I did, another boy. You know, that was the first time, oh, you're pretty. What are you trying to say? Like I'm ready to fight. It's almost like it's foreign that you love me. Why? I don't even know if I love myself at that time. Why would you love me?
So when you look at the whole fatherhood movement, the fatherhood movement came because at a certain point, the best and the brightest brains realized that dads have value. Whether you want to admit it or you don't want to admit it, the statistics show dad plays an important role in preventing negative outcomes.
You wanna hug me? Come here.
Hug me. If we're going to be serious about the outcomes, if we're going to be serious about solutions, we need to be serious about what are we doing in terms of the way we're setting up structures and systems, and are those things helping or are they hindering?
Anybody can have a child. That takes minutes. Presence, passion to be a father. I know it doesn't come off, just like motherhood, it doesn't come just because you pop a child out. But if he's not there for the good, if he's not there for the bad, why does he deserve the title?
So as parents, they need us to be on one accord. You know, we're gonna be in this together and not let them tear us apart, because kids are very intuitive and they know when they can get away with stuff with one person over the other person, and they will pitch you between each other. So you have to have a solid foundation in the parental relationship first, because what they see at home is what they model in public. And kids will tell your business. You need to understand that if you cussing Johnny out at home, Johnny's gonna tell it in public. And that can bring down a lot of trouble on people. I run a youth group, and yeah, kids will tell your business.
And until we're ready to just have this conversation across the board, no one person, because of their gender, is going to be better fit or suited to be a parent than the other person, strictly on the basis of whether they identify as male or female. The reality is sometimes kids are gonna be better off with dad because mom's got some stuff to deal with. Sometimes kids are gonna be better left with mom because dad's got stuff to deal with. And so I think what happens is you just have these perpetual cycles. In the church world, we call them generational curses. And what I like to say is it's not some evil force on the outside came and is inflicting this sin on your family. It's some person had a stupid idea, and that stupid idea went unchecked for a long time. And so the best way to break a generational curse is for someone to recognize there is a habit that continues to happen in my family. What is it that I need to see or I need to think that they weren't thinking about or that they didn't see, and how can I start making that thing happen in my life? Because it does perpetuate the problem. It does make it seem like, more men are doing this and unhealthy relationships. It's not just mom or dad, it's the combination of the two. We're playing hot potato with our own stupidity.
I think when you're asking why is it overlooked, I think it's overlooked when we think about the populations that are, or the individuals that are serving the populations of fathers that need resources or that are in this situation. Lots of times it goes back to there's some gatekeeping that takes place, right? So there's gatekeeping that happens when mom is protecting or keeping the child away from their father, but also when we think about the majority of individuals that work for agencies that support families, the majority of people aren't men, right? So then there's a level of women that are in positions that may have issues with fathers, right? Or have issues with men. And not to say all, but on some level this is happening. So then we see this playing out where there's this dynamic of men versus women, right? And so if men are hurting or doing different things within the family, then it's easy to keep them away because we're trying to protect ourselves as women, right? I say that to say this is when we think about if we see somebody is hurting, then we have a responsibility to help. Right? So not only is it like the family and the mom and the child that are being hurt, we also have a father that is being hurt. So how do we help him so that he can become better, so that he's not replaced or completely removed from the situation if he's able to get himself together, right? And so if he is incapable of doing that, by all means, let's keep him out of the picture, right? And make sure we surround these families and these children with people with men that can support them at the same time, right? But most men aren't those men that need to be completely removed. That's a small percentage of society, right? So how do we come around those that are supported? I always say it takes a village, right, to raise a child. And we talk about the importance of community and family. Well, why is it that it's so easy to remove the man from the situation?
I recognize that it takes a lot of guts to walk into a therapist's office for a man, because that is not something that we say is okay. Why would you be that weak and stuff and just, and to me, it's like, why is that looked at any differently? If someone talks about having diabetes, you don't look at them as lesser than. You do if there's a mental health issue. It's not a weakness to admit you need help.
There's a stigmatization that fathers don't care, fathers have it easy, fathers take a break. I mean, there's just all of this negative perception about fathers that I think constantly needs to be a part of every agenda, part of every discussion, because fathers are important. And I think we need to do a better job. When I say we, that is providers and community need to do a better job of including fathers.
For me, because I was definitely trying to break the cycle with my son, like, I don't want you to have a child at 19 like I did, like my mom did, like her mom did. Because it's definitely a generational thing. It was a moment in my life where I was just like, something's not right here. Why do I keep repeating this? I want to do better. I need to do better. This is not working. I see this in my lineage here. That was the moment that I had with myself, to where I said, okay, what is going on in my life? Why am I having these relationships don't work? I don't do relationships well. I'm angry. I'm bitter. What is wrong? And I had to reconcile that and look at my father's father, where he came from. Same thing. Look at his father, the same thing. And I had to realize, you know what? He could not give me what he didn't have. That's not what he had. What I'm asking for, he doesn't even know what that looks like. So I want my son to give me that same grace. Mom, I'm dysfunctional. Why am I angry? Why am I, not succeeding in life? Well, because it's my fault, son. Can you forgive me? Because I couldn't give you what I didn't have. So it's that moment that I had, that epiphany. I was like, you know what? I want my son to be able to say, you know what, Mom, you did the best you could with what you had.
I want to ask you about your father, and if you had to ask him anything, and there's something that you were wanting to ask him that you probably haven't said, that you probably wanted to say, or would like for him to do this to really build this relationship from today, what would you say to him?
I would probably ask him what stood in your way, because there was no agreement that my mom had sole custody to where we only had visitation. Again, there was nothing in place to keep you away. So I would just want what kept you away? What stood in the way to where you weren't the father that I needed?
Why wasn't you there for us? What are your reasons? Even whatever your reasons were back then, why all this time has passed by, you didn't try to fix the father-daughter relationship. At what point did you just drop the ball on us? What happened? I don't have the answers.
Yeah, why weren't you there? I understand that you and my mom didn't work out. You guys were young, but if you truly love me, why weren't you there more? Even if it was every holiday, that would have been more than what I got.
No matter what has happened in the past, I'm still always going to be here. And even though our relationship is not completely intact, that I still love him. I'm grateful that he brought me into this world. I know that he did the best he could with the circumstances that he was given and being in that mental state of mind that he was in. He's still my father, and I love him for being my father.
I would ask him, tell him to get some help. Get yourself together. So you can be around your family, You're gonna lose everybody. Until you hit rock bottom, that's when you will see, hey, I need to get myself together. Let me fix this so I can be in my kids' life, my grandchildren's life. So that's the main thing I would like him to do, is get some help, go to rehab.
I would say, what am I supposed to do with this boy? He's 14. He's a great kid, but he's so much like you. What's happening? Tell me what's happening. And how can I prevent certain pitfalls that you had to do? How can I prevent them? You know what I mean? Where's he at? What should I have known that I didn't know? That's the conversation I would have.
No, I don't think there's anything I could say that I haven't said in life. But do I have any last words for him? The only thing I could possibly say is, I hope you made peace with your life. Because at the end of the day, when he passed away, he was still living the life of Papa was a Rolling Stone. And he wasn't even married, but he was living a deceitful life at the end of the day. He would have gotten nothing but full heart, full years of frustration of tearing down our family. It wouldn't have been anything nice. I made my peace. I said everything I had to say, opened the door, gave my phone number. You know, I gave him multiple aspects of forgiveness opportunities. And at the end of the day, he chose not to until he got on his deathbed.
If he was sitting right here, right now, he would tell you that he didn't do anything wrong, that he was just being a parent. And I just, ideally, I know that I would want him to say that he's sorry that he hurt me and that he's gonna make more effort. I don't even want you to parent me at this point. I just want you to be nice. I know that sounds cheesy, but I want him to say he's sorry and that we're all human. You messed up, that's the past. That was yesterday. Let's start today. That's what I want him to say is start today. I messed up, I'm moving forward, I love you. I've never heard that from him, never.
I wish I'd have known you sooner. That way I would have been a little more well-rounded and I would have not felt like a round peg in a square hole. Your grandchildren need to know you. I know they don't call, I know they don't write, I know they're not always there, but they need to know you. They need to know their history.
I would want to know what was going through his head. Like, why didn't you show up? You said you would show up. That would be my question. You know, people say there's two sides to a story. I just want to know his side. Like, why didn't he show up? Because my mom didn't talk about it. She was making sure that we were taken care of, but she never sat us down and talked to us about why these things are going on, you know. So I like to know people's reasoning. Like, what were you thinking? What were you thinking?
Don't leave my life because I need you now like I never have before. As for my life, it was interesting. You know, my mom, when she was domestically being abused all the time, he would take the money, we would starve, we would not, you know, we wouldn't know where the next meal was going to come from, you know, and all of that. And it was my biological dad. We don't have the same father, my brothers and I and sisters. He was the one that saved her and got her out of that situation. And they came up with me, 9.5-pound girl. I'm born on December 5th. And, you know, that helped her, you know, with everything that we was going through as coming up as a little kid. It was my dad that pretty much was the savior of our family, you know, where I'm also a product of infidelity, but I was also a secret. I was a secret all of my life until my father passed, my biological father passed. Nobody knew anything about me. He promised, he asked me to promise him not to ever tell anyone. And I kept that promise if it meant, because 5 minutes of his time, 10 minutes of his time, or at least if I could see him for at least one day meant that much to me. And so I kept the vow and I never told anyone that I existed. We had a relationship when he could see me, you know, which was very far and few. But whenever he did see me, it meant the world to me. I know that he loved me. He cared. My mom said that he did take care of me from a baby on up and everything. But nobody knew anything about me. I was the secret until he died. My dreams started shattering actually starting at the age of 6. Growing up with incest and, a relative taking advantage of me, trying to take advantage of me at the age of 6. And then when my mom, growing up, seeing my mom going through a lot of domestic abuse, she remarried and basically married a monster that basically, looked me in my eyes and told me that he married my mom just to get to me. Of course, as a kid, what do you do with that kind of information? What do you say? What do you do? It was just a very crazy situation, to experience with someone that you trusted. You came into my mother's life as supposedly this father figure, supposedly for me. My dream has always been that, when I got married, I wanted to be pure, for my husband when I got married, and, and all of my children be by one man, by my husband, and that didn't happen. My innocence was taken from me by my stepfather. So I became a mom at 12. As far as my 12, being 12 years of age, having a child, that made, pretty much forced me to become an adult before I was ready. It was terrible, it was awful. I think right after I had my son at the age of 12, he held my infant up in the air and, like this. And he told me that if I didn't do what he wanted me to do, that he was going to drop him down and kill him. And of course, I did what he asked me to do. He ripped my soul away. He ripped a lot of things away I didn't have, because things were not normal. Starting with the relative at 6, and then actually with another relative at the age of 9, and then where I'm totally accessed on a daily basis, and traumatized daily, pretty much. It makes me feel, it felt like I wasn't, nothing or anything. I decided one day to try to fight him back, and I kicked him, and he tried to choke me to death, and he thought he had killed me, and he was, I had blacked out, and he shook me until I came to. I should have been found dead, by the time my mom came home. It was tragic, It was tragic. I felt like I was silently screaming. He told me if I ever told anybody, he would kill my whole family. I had a brother, and I was trying to discuss with him what happened to me. And, his response was, "What did you do?" And here it is, I'm a kid. This is a 52-year-old man, every bit of over 6 feet, weighing almost 300 pounds, and I'm only about 110 pounds. Taking advantage of me, and you ask me, what did I do? My mom, she was in denial of it when I told her. My mom endured domestic violence. He portrayed himself as this man that, in her eyes, was finally a man was not beating on her. One night, he decided to get really bold and tried to take advantage of me while she was sleeping. And she was awakened, and she found him in my doorway with nothing but his underwear on. And at that time, she put him out. She didn't put him in prison, but she just put him out. And she went years, for a long time, not wanting to process the fact what this man did, because she was hurt. And I understand now why, because the very same things that happened to me happened to her. It repeated itself with me, some of the things that she went through. Also, the way that she was pretty much taught to process things, because of what happened to her and the way that my grandmother, responded to her. That's the only way that she knew how to respond to me. It was tough being a mom, going to school with that. I had a school teacher, I never will forget, to tell me when I was 15, carrying my daughter, she said that I would always work at McDonald's and never get married because no man would want me. And that impacted my life along with the abuse and trauma. My self-esteem was constantly shot down, because, I used to hate to look at myself in the mirror, because I felt so ugly and I felt like, I didn't have a purpose here in life. I felt like I was just existing. But I was considered an ugly girl in school. I mean, that's what I was called. I was teased a lot. It's like if you didn't look a certain way, if you wasn't a certain type of skin tone, I just was not what they considered the pretty girl, in school. Even though my life at that point was absolutely abnormal, I wanted to feel a part. Basically a part. I mean, which meant everything to me. So I would sometimes buy a friend for a day, and the way that I would do that is I buy them lunch or buy them a snack or buy them something or whatever and stuff like that, just to have a normal teen conversation. The crazy part about it, they will never know that's what I was doing. I was paying for an escape. I was paying to feel like somebody cared about what I was going through. A friend meant that much if I could just talk to someone, because I knew when I went home, I had to face the reality of this monster that was at home, and I'm there alone with him by myself because of the time that my mom worked. Being a mom, it was a struggle. It was hard. I had to make some choices to take care of my babies or get an education. And, and it was hard. I mean, going to school, to having 2 crying babies by the age of 15, I started working. And I lied and said I was 16 because, the legal age to be was to be 16 to be able to work. And, I wasn't exactly 16, but, that's what I did. And I went to work. And I chose to work versus school. I had to get my GED, later on to be able to say, hey, I was able to go to school, at least for a little while, at least through 9th grade. And after that, I had to go and leave. Because, having 2 babies, trying to go to school, my mind was distorted on a daily basis. I couldn't understand a lot of days. My freedom was at school. My tragedy was at home. And then when I finally got old enough, I prematurely married at an early age because I was trying to find security, not really understanding what I was doing. He was much older. Again, I felt like, things would be okay, but it wasn't. And we stayed married for like 6 years. And I found out later on, my daughter told me that he tried to touch her at the age of 6. And I thought I was going to lose my mind because that is a woman's worst nightmare, being that you already have children and you marrying someone that says that they love you, they love your children. Found that not to be true. And I told her, I said, sweetheart, why you didn't tell me? And she was like, Mama, because I couldn't afford you to go to prison, because I know you would have done what you would have done. And I don't know what I would have done. And then I remarried again and stayed married for 14 years. And I thought I did it right. And that ended up in divorce. That's when I really, really wished that I could talk to my dad, my father, because I couldn't understand I couldn't understand that. Why is it seem like every man that is entered into my life felt like it was okay to hurt me? I feel like that I did not find out who I really was, you know, as far as my father is concerned. I wish, of course, he would have been the one to walk me down the aisle. I wanted my dad to be the first one to tell me that I was a princess or a queen. My father's words, I feel like would have changed my life and would have helped me to have better direction. And I feel like the failed 2 marriages would have been different. And I would have been able to be truly happy. Or I wish he would have been able to save my life from the monster that was trying to take my life. Wish I would have been able to scream help. And he would have came to my rescue. I would tell him, I still want to sit in your lap and you look me in my eyes and tell me that I'm gonna be okay. And that you will protect me and you will be here because your daughter has been hurt.
So what would I say to those women out there who have been abused or are currently living in an abusive situation? There are services out there that can help them. And I understand that it's hard because often the worst part about abuse is the emotional aspect. It's not the physical bruises or anything else like that. It is the low self-worth and the isolation and feeling like there's nowhere to go.
To those women that have been abused by their fathers or by men in general, I know I had nothing to do with it, but I want to say I'm sorry for that. That individual wasn't able to recognize his own worth so that he could see the worth that you have and the value that you have as a person. And so I encourage you to do all the things that you need to do to take care of yourself and to take care of your family so that it doesn't continue to perpetuate itself. You're loved, you're beautiful, you're amazing. All the things that he said that you weren't, all the things that he took away from you, you're not those things, you're more than that. You are the essence of love.
That self-work is hard. It's tough. I know for me to look at myself in the mirror and be like, hey, you had part in this, that's hard.
I mean, I guess, what did you do to get there?
I think I had finally reached rock bottom. I was so depressed. I was just going through the motions. And I was like, I had the why me mentality. And then I kind of just had to shift that. Why not me? Yeah, you're a good person. Yeah, you mean well. But life is happening to everybody. You're not the first person to be in this position. Cecilia, what are you going to do about it?
I got here because of my struggles. I got here because of my triumphs. I got here because I didn't allow anybody to tell me what I was and wasn't capable of. I think we have so many people in this world that are standing outside a door waiting to push you back in and tell you what you're capable of. I go around people like that.
Like I said, you got to embrace it. You got to do your own personal work in order to even move forward. So it starts with self before you bring, your father or your kid's father.
And as far as just being a woman, we just got to make sure we take care of ourselves and take that time for ourselves, have that mental space just for us. Because I think sometimes we get in that mode of being a mom that we truly forget that we're women. And we have to take care of that part of us, because if we don't, we become damaged and we don't even know it.
All I would hope is that you do what you need to do to find the healing that you need. And you continue on that journey, because I don't think it's one of those things where you go to one thing and you do one thing and it fixes everything. I think that this is something that we grow in, or we grow through the rest of our lives.
Once you reach the floor, it's really pretty much up to you to be determined, like, this is not how I'm going to end. Like, there is no way this is how my story ends. And I did not want that for myself. I didn't want anyone to look back at my life and be like, oh, poor Cecilia. Like, yeah, poor Cecilia in this chapter, but on these chapters, poor Cecilia, like, turned that around somehow.
With that being said, how would you describe yourself today?
I would describe myself as being resilient and strong, and as a type of person that I know what I want in my life, and I've seen the life that my biological father had, and I don't want that. I know what I want, and I'm very headstrong in that, and I'm very persistent at getting to where I want to be in my life. And nothing's going to get in the way of that.
You know, I still enjoy the thoughts of spending time with my dad. So when we go to Memphis, I do spend quite a bit of time with him. But Candace today has found balance in, you know, what happened as a little girl and who I am now, the independence and all of that. So Candace today makes it happen. It's so many things you learn when you're about to turn 40. It's like, wow, this doesn't look like it looked at 20. Like, they're unreal fairy tales. Like, you're gonna really have problems. And so the Candace today walks through those problems and tries to, you know, compromise with people. In my 20s, it wasn't no compromise, and it was my way or no way. And realizing that is very eye-opening, and that's what my oldest daughter and her father and I were talking about. He was like, it was always your way or no way. I'm so glad you decided to change. I was like, okay. I can see that. You know, you take that and you grow from it.
I am resilient. I'm wise. I'm seasoned very well. And that comes along with a lot of stuff that I've been through. Discernment is at an all-time high. I'm just overall a better person. I don't let the father-daughter thing try to bring me down, because as long as I know I'm still trying to reach and get us to that place, I can only do so much with what I have. But if Dad's not gonna meet me at the end of the day, as long as I do my part, then I'll just have to live with it and be good.
I won't say that everything's perfect or unicorns and rainbows, but I'm more self-aware. I know my triggers. Just trying to see how at the end of the day, when I look back, I can be proud of what I made out of the cards, you know, that I was dealt.
I think for me, the process began growing as an independent woman, being on my own for a long time after I left my parents' home. Doing things on my own, but also being able to look to others for guidance and to learn this process of who you are, grounding in work and habit, discipline, right? These are the sort of ingredients when I think about my journey before that I had no idea was going to prepare me for motherhood, but also being spiritually grounded, having the ability to call on someone or something greater than myself. And I had to get up and do that every day. Now, what allowed me to do that? Grace, a connection to a higher purpose and calling in my life, but also this self-determination of knowing that I'm confident and able and equipped by someone greater than me.
I know life is not easy, And I know how hard it can be, because the position that you are in right now, I was in that position. So don't think for a second that somebody doesn't understand where you are coming from. Don't think for a second that nobody gets what you're going through, because I promise you that just like me, there are many other girls who have been where you are, and we're still pushing through, and we're still going. And it doesn't stop here. It doesn't end here, and you will not stay stuck forever. You're not going to stay in this bad situation or in this bad circumstance right now. And it will get better, but you have to keep pushing, and you have to keep that goal in sight, because there's always going to be a better day, and it's going to get better.
To those fatherless women, whether your father is alive or not, and you've not reconciled that relationship, hear everything that these women had to say today. Take it in, evaluate, your life. If there's more to it, or if you're holding on to some unforgiveness or bitterness, and extend the olive branch to your father, even your mother. Because a lot of issues that we deal with as women can be traced back to the father wound. So forgive yourself, forgive your father, and just try to work toward a better and healthy relationship. Understand where he came from. Look at his past, and just do your best to heal and move forward.
And appreciate your dad for who he is and what he did impact, if it was nothing but bringing you here, right? And it's more for you than it is for him. So for the forgiveness aspect, my dad didn't do everything right, but neither do I, right? Stop holding them to a standard that we ourselves as parents don't live up to. You know what I mean? Sometimes we hold them to certain standards. We're not meeting.
It doesn't take much. Sometimes I think people pride get in the way. And sometimes when some people mess up, they don't know how to come back from it. And you just have to do it. Try. Make some type of effort. Phone call, cards, start something and be consistent. That's pretty much it.
I would just say that fathers are powerful, and if you're able to have a relationship with your father, honor your father and absolutely love him to pieces as often as possible. Love him and allow him to love you.
Carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, but don't let it make you older, they say. Settle me down when I can't see